Right guys and girls, it's me again, that annoying Scottish bloke for Blackpool. Anyway. It's about time we started doing some videos on my old 328i Sport again, I think. Over the winter months, well, when it's freezing cold in it, and the garage I've got at home is just an old prefab garage, so it doesn't keep any warmth in, so it's not a nice place to be in the winter, shall we say. So what I've been doing is I've just been kind of accumulating parts for the car. I've been doing wee bits and pieces, but mainly just sort of making plans. Sorry, swallowed a fly there. Honest, it's no COVID. Anyway, making plans really. Now, initially I was going to swap the M3 stuff. The long-term viewers will know that I've got an E36 M3 track car as well, and I was going to make one really nice car out of the two of them. I was going to use the body for the 328 and the running gear out of the M3 to make a really nice track car. Now, what's happened is, over the last couple of years, the values of E36 M3s, and in fact anything sort of 90s performance car, the value of them is just going up. They're just at that age now where they're getting harder to get. So it wouldn't make any sense to strip an M3 and put the stuff into a 328. So I'm just going to leave the M3 as an M3. And then we're going to turn the 328 into a sort of proper, sort of club sport, sort of track car. I decided, I've never had a turbo car before. I've had turbo diesels, but I've never had a performance turbo car. I thought, right, let's small engine with a turbocharger. Now, what we need for a turbo engine to make it go fast is you need a good turbo, don't you? And that's where our video sponsor comes in. I was doing my homework on turbochargers, and in particular turbochargers that work with this engine to make good power. Now the target is, I'd like to see 400 horsepower. In fact, I'd like to see 450 horsepower. But the target initially is going to be 350, 400 just to get it sort of working, and then we'll build a proper fire breathing engine maybe later on in time once we iron out all the faults. So our turbocharger was provided by a company called Pulsar Turbo. Now you might have heard of them if you're sort of into tuning cars and stuff like that, because they're an up and coming name in the sort of performance car sort of sector. Anyway, I was doing my homework and I kept coming back to these turbochargers. Everybody seems to be raving about them. The performance that they're capable of is fantastic. The reliability on them seems to be really, really good, and all at a very fair price as well. So I contacted the guys at Pulsar, and very nice they were too actually. Got talking to them asking what would be the best sort of turbo for this. I'd already had an idea of what sort of turbocharger I wanted, but just sort of spoke to them and they kind of advised me that yeah, what I was thinking was right, and it would work basically on this engine. It just confirmed what I already knew really. Really nice guys to deal with. And then got talking about YouTube and stuff like that, and they've offered to supply the turbocharger for the build. So they are one of our new sponsorship sort of providers, if you like, for the 328i build, and a massive thanks to them. So what we'll do is we'll do a wee sort of the boxes here. I've quickly opened it up just to make sure there was something in it. You know what these sort of couriers and stuff are like. I haven't actually taken the turbocharger out of the bag or anything yet, so we'll open it up. And we'll have a look at what's inside it. I'm excited for this bit actually. So, the guys did say they'd be sending me some stickers and some t-shirts and stuff like that, so that's cool. So always looking for t-shirts to wear out in the garage and stuff like that, so ideal really. Get some stickers on the car as well, some cool stickers. Check that out, that's funky, isn't it? All sort of rainbow mint, like that. Right, very well packaged. Do you know what else I like actually that I noticed straight away? The box is a proper box. A lot of the time when you buy tuning stuff, you're spending a lot of money on things, and they come and it's just in a sort of generic box that you would buy for anywhere. But this one's got a proper, their own branding on the box and stuff like that. It's little things like that that make the difference when you're spending a lot of money. I mean, although they've provided it to me and it's not actually cost me anything, it's a nice touch, isn't it, if I was spending the money. So the turbocharger that I opted for, this is the sort of latest generation of sort of performance turbochargers for this engine at least. It's a g25-660. Now the G25 is, I just need to get something to open this. Snips. Oh, so there's. Well, that's cool as well. Look, it's got their own branding. Look at that. PSR, that's cool. So, straight away, it just looks like a quality piece, to be honest. It just, look at it, the finish on that's fantastic, I like that. Right, so this is a G25-660 Pulsar turbo. The G25 part dictates that it's a small frame turbocharger, so it's quite a compact unit. The 660 part denotes that it can flow enough air for 660 horsepower. Now that is on an engine that is set up optimally to be able to produce 660 horsepower, but this turbo will flow enough air for 660 horsepower nonetheless if it was down to the turbocharger on its own. It is a dual ball bearing turbocharger, which means that there's no journal bearings in it at all. Some sort of cheaper turbochargers, they'll say they're ball bearing turbochargers, and basically what they'll have is they'll have a ball bearing in one side and a journal bearing in the other side, which isn't really much good to anybody. This is a full dual ball bearing turbocharger, genuine dual ball bearing turbocharger, and that is what you want. I opted for an internal wastegate just because it gives me one less thing to sort of think about when I'm positioning it in the car, really. You can get, Pulsar do an option for you to have an external wastegate that's basically just not got this bit on it, and you can run a TL wastegate or whatever, but I've opted for, as I say, I've opted for the internal wastegate with Pulsar's own actuator on it as well, so that will work perfectly with the turbo. It's also got, another thing the turbocharger's got is it's got provision for the turbo speed sensor. Now this is something that you never used to see years ago, but the latest turbos are all starting to come with these, and this is no exception. And it's ideal for, I think they use it when they're mapping them and stuff like that. You see it a lot on like high-end stuff like World Rally cars and things like that. They've all got turbo speed sensors on them. It's got waterways on it as well. I mean, most turbos have got, most good turbos have waterways on them, and it just allows a bit better cooling for the turbocharger, and it will extend its life. You don't have to actually have water cooling on your turbo. You can rely on the oil if you want, but it is better to have the water cooling plumbed in if you can. However, if you choose to have one of these turbochargers and just use the oil cooling, all you have to do is, if you just let your engine idle for a few minutes before switching it off, just to let it all cool down, and it will sort of prolong the life. But using water cooling is definitely the best, and I'll be using the water cooling because the engine already had water cooling on it because it was already a turbo engine, this one, so we will be using that. The finish on it and the machining is second to none, really. It's, in fact, look at this, it's even got their own wee branding on it, PSR. Everything is just, it's fantastic. I mean, it's all dual V-band as well, which makes it easier to mount and stuff. So overall, a fantastic piece of kit, and I can't wait to get it onto the engine. Thanks very much to Pulsar Turbos for providing us with this turbo. I'm really looking forward to get it. I feel like I'm a step closer now. Anyway, a little bit about, Pulsar also sent the dual band clamps and everything. These come with the turbo. They came with the dual band clamps and also the dual band mountings for putting onto your exhaust and your exhaust manifold. So that's fantastic. So I'll no need to buy them. So if I was to buy them separately, that would cost me probably about, I bet that's the best part of 70 or 80 pounds there on its own, just in flanges and V-band clamps. Absolutely fantastic. What else is in here actually? What's this? So we've got the gasket for the oil return, and we've got oil. That's because it's a dual bearing, a ball bearing turbocharger. You need to use this little oil restrictor for the bearings. If you just let the oil go in on the normal pressure, it wrecks the bearings, I'm sure. So you use these little sort of restrictors, and that just allows enough oil in that it keeps them working properly. Anyway, as for the engine, right? So I had you guessing about what engine it was, didn't I? The engine I've chosen to use is the 1.8 20 valve turbo engine from like an Audi TT. They actually put this engine, Volkswagen Audi Group put it in everything. You get it in your Audi S3s, your Audi A3s, you get it in your Seat Leon Cupras, you get it in your Audi TTs, Skoda VRSs. In fact, this engine here is actually an AUQ engine out of a Skoda VRS. So it was originally 180 horsepower just. But the good thing about these engines is the actual block and everything is capable of an incredible amount of power. There's a couple of little things that you need to do to them for them to produce high power, but not much really at all. It's a cast iron block, small cast iron block, right? So it's a bit heavier than an alloy block, obviously, but it's still nowhere near as heavy as what the M3 engine is. That's a cast iron 6-cylinder. This is a little 4-cylinder, obviously, so it doesn't weigh that much. Because it's cast iron though, it's really, really strong, so you can take quite a lot of boost. What you really need to do with them though is fit some uprated rods. The con rods for the pistons are a weak point on them, but you pick them up. I mean, these are actually just cheap eBay ones, these ones. Loads of people are running them. They're about 300 quid, and the power figures that I want to go to, they will be fine for that. Loads of people running these rods at 500 horsepower without a problem, so I'll be quite happy with that. In fact, my target's actually about 400, 450 horsepower, so that should be good enough. I've just taken the head to have it all skimmed, just so that we took the head off in order to fit the rods. Actually, in order to fit the rods, you need to take the pistons out. So in order to get the pistons out, you need to take the cylinder head off. And if you're taking the cylinder head off, you need to get, well, you don't need to, but it's best to get an engineering shop just to give it a very light skim, so that when you clamp it back together with a sort of the new head gasket and stuff, it's all going to seal perfectly and you shouldn't have any issues. Because I'm putting it into rear wheel drive, Volkswagen or Audi, I've never actually put this engine into a rear wheel drive car that I know of. So there is some stuff with gearboxes that I'm sort of waiting on getting sorted out. I'm basically having the front half of an Audi TT gearbox, the flange, welded onto a BMW box. So that took some sort of calculating, but we've got that done. Also, with a rear wheel drive gearbox, you need to run a spigot bearing, which I thought was going to be a bit of an issue, but then I discovered that the Audi A4 engine, although it was front wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, because it was north-south mounted, it actually, you could get, there's provisions for a spigot bearing in the crank, so that was a winner. But not only that, it's the same size as the BMW one, so that's good news. What else? The cylinder heads The only issue you really get with these cylinder heads is the exhaust valves are sodium filled, and once they've done sort of higher mileages, they can sort of fail. So I'll probably put some new valves into it, well, they fail over sort of 400 horsepower. So whether I put some new valves into it just now, or whether I put some new valves into it later on, I've not decided yet. I might just run it 350 horsepower, because taking the head off is pretty easy really. We had to do the rods because I didn't want to bring the full engine out and in to do that again. But actually taking the cylinder head off, you can have the cylinder head off in about 40 minutes. It's no big deal at all if I wanted to upgrade the valves whilst it's in the car. Not a big deal. If you know of any sort of Volkswagen tuning sort of clubs or anything like that specifically about this engine, the 1.8 20 valve turbo, let me know in the comments below, or if you know any YouTubers tuning these engines, let me know in the comments below. There is a few really good tuners in this country actually. Badger 5 and places like that seem to be the sort of go-to shops on them. But the idea is, if we build this up, put a set of rods in it, maybe some valves, aim for sort of 400 horsepower-ish, and then maybe in the future build a really cool engine for the ground up with forged pistons and stuff like that. The standard pistons are good enough for 500 horsepower. Surprisingly, that's what everybody's saying. So whether I need new pistons or not, I don't know, but we will probably in the future build a really strict engine. The good thing about these engines is, and one of the reasons I picked them is, one, it's a 5-valve head, so they breathe really good. I mean, the turbocharger will obviously help it breathe by forcing the air in, but having the 5 valves means that they also rev pretty high. They get a bit of a bad rep actually, because the standard turbochargers that come with these engines from the factory on the Audi TTs and stuff like that, they're really small turbochargers. They're more designed for sort of spooling really fast. I mean, basically a standard Audi TT hasn't got any lag at all, hardly. They just boost straight away, which is what Joe Public wants on a day-to-day basis. But the problem with that is they run out of breath really quick. I mean, 5,000 revs and they're pretty much done, 5.5. But the actual engine itself, with a proper turbo, they rev really freely. They're a good free-flowing engine. The crankshafts in them, as far as I can tell on the internet, nobody's ever broke a crankshaft in them. The crankshafts are super strong. The pistons are super strong. As I say, the rods are cheap to upgrade. Everything's good. You can basically build a set of rods in a turbo and you're at 400 horsepower. Fantastic. ECU wise, I'm not sure what I'm doing there yet. You can run the Volkswagen Audi sort of ECU in other cars. You can do that. You can take the sort of immobilizer off of them and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I maybe run an Emerald ECU or something like that, like a standalone. I'm not quite sure on that. It just adds a lot of expense. And I'm getting married in May. Finally managing to get married because of all these setbacks with COVID and stuff like that. So we're having to sort of hold back on the spending at the moment. We do have another engine. I've actually got another engine at home, but I bought a naturally aspirated one. The naturally aspirated engine has got a slightly higher lift camshaft. So it came up cheap. I won it on eBay for 70 quid or something like that. And what you do is you use the naturally aspirated camshafts in this engine. So we'll be putting the bigger cams in it. And also the naturally aspirated engine came with this manifold, which, although the manifold's absolutely crap, this flange is ideal for building a turbo sort of manifold out of. I mean, I would have had to spend 40 or 50 quid just to get that flange off of eBay, so one that has been made, but we'll just cut this off and use that. So basically buying that engine has paid for itself just by that and the cams, so I'm quite happy with that. And it's getting used currently as the mock-up block for the gearbox getting made, so handy. So it's all happening, it's all coming along. And it's a bit of an unusual engine swap into a BMW, I think. And with 400 horsepower, it should be good. Let me know what you think, guys and girls. thanks very much for watching. If you want to sort of comment, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hopefully we'll actually, well, in fact, in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the engine up. We'll get the head on, we'll get it all painted up, we'll get the rods in it, we'll get the sort of sump mounted and stuff like that, and then maybe we'll be able to make a start on a manifold for this turbo. Won't be long, I'm excited, I want it done for summer.